Airbags can malfunction in many different ways besides just failure to deploy.
Can you be sure that your car's airbags are going to function the way you need them to? Well, that's what we're going to ask the lawyer on today's episode. Hi again, everybody. I'm Rob Rosenthal with AskTheLawyers.com, and my guest is attorney Raymond Hatcher with the Sloan Firm in Longview, Texas. Ray, thank you for making some time and helping us out today.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Seems like we've been hearing about airbag defects and recalls for many years now, but let's just recap a little bit. What are these defects? What can happen? What can go wrong?
Well, it's important for us to kind of step back and take a look at airbags because it's not just an airbag, it's an entire safety system. It's a restraint system. It's an incredibly complex system in today's vehicles. It's over the years since they were first started using them in the 90s, the technology has just grown by leaps and bounds. And today you've got these incredibly complex computer-driven algorithms that actually make decisions on whether the airbag and what airbag and how hard the airbag should deploy, how long it should stay inflated, all based on data that the vehicle is assembling as the crash sequence begins and plays out. So whether the airbag should or shouldn't deploy, that's a question that you have to have some background and data to ascertain. But generally speaking, if a vehicle is in a severe crash and the airbag doesn't deploy or airbags don't deploy, then something's wrong and needs to be checked into.
It may seem like an obvious question, but what are the risks to the driver and passenger should the airbags malfunction? Well,
it depends on the type of collision it is, but obviously the most serious situation is death because airbags are very effective against or preventing people from being killed. In fact, in some studies looking at driver's side impacts on people in SUVs, airbags reduce the risk of death by about 52%. So death is the number one consequence of failure to deploy, but you also see other things like neck injuries, paralysis, facial injuries, of course, any kind of serious bodily injury that the airbag would have prevented.
I don't know. Thankfully, I've never been in such a serious collision, but I don't think the first thing I would think about after that collision is, did my airbag operate the way it should have? Is this the kind of thing that maybe most people don't think about? Is this why they need an attorney that's experienced in this, or is it difficult to determine if the airbag has malfunctioned?
Well, airbags can malfunction in many different ways besides just failure to deploy.
Right.
You can have late deployments. You can have under inflation if the bag has suffered some kind of abrasion or cut or something like that. You can have inflations that don't stay inflated for the adequate period of time to prevent the injury. So there's a lot of different aspects that need to be investigated to see if the airbag functioned as it was intended. An important thing to also remember is some of the early airbags from the mid to late 90s. Those airbags were very powerful, and they can cause injury themselves, even functioning as they're supposed to. In about 1998 or 99, the U.S. government required that airbags be depowered, and since that time, the manufacturers have refined their computer algorithms to prevent those injuries by and large. But some of the older vehicles, you've got the real potential for someone to be injured just because the bag is so powerful.
I mentioned at the top, Ray, about recalls. We heard about airbag, the Takata airbag was very famous. If my airbag happened to be on a recall, whether I knew about it or not, does that affect my ability to get compensation?
Well, it does. First of all, if the airbag is recalled, the real issue is, did the manufacturer undertake an adequate effort to notify the people that needed to be notified? In other words, everyone that has a car that has that defective airbag in it. So whether the manufacturer did a good job doing the recall is an issue. Whether you actually received notice of the recall is an issue. Whether you acted on it and had the recall repair done, that's an issue. And for example, in that Takeda airbag recall that you were referring to, that affected about 70 million vehicles. And the fact of the matter is they just didn't have 70 million extra airbags to replace those. So there were people driving around in vehicles that had an unsafe or potentially unsafe airbag. They couldn't get it replaced. So all those issues come into play and have to be considered in pursuing a claim.
It sounds, just from our little short time talking here, it's a way more complicated thing than I may have realized from the beginning. So it sounds like it's really important to have an attorney on your side to help sort all this out for you.
It is. The restraint systems, including airbag systems in modern automobiles, are some of the most complex systems that I'm aware of. And the lawyers that do automotive product liability litigation like this, they spend lots and lots of time trying to stay on the cutting edge of this. And even so, we have to hire multiple experts in these cases, accident reconstructionists, airbag experts, design experts, biomechanical experts. It's not uncommon to have 8 or 10 different experts in one of these cases, and they're very, very expensive. So it's not uncommon to have hundreds of thousands of dollars tied up in these cases.
So that may scare me off, Ray, from calling an attorney, getting an attorney. Well, I don't have that kind of money to lay out for this sort of thing. What's your answer to that?
Well, our law firm does these cases on contingent fee, which means you don't pay anything. Even if I were to spend $100,000 on the case, you don't pay anything until I win the case for you. And when I say I win the case for me, it's not just me, it's the entire firm. We've got many lawyers that work on these cases, and we'll have many experts involved in the cases. So you don't have to pay a penny until we make a recovery for you.
It's always interesting to talk to you, Ray. I always learn something after we talk. Thank you for helping us out today.
My pleasure. Thanks again.
That's going to do it for this episode of Ask the Lawyer. My guest has been attorney Raymond Hatcher from Texas. If you want the best information or you're ready to choose a lawyer that lawyers choose, make sure to go to askthelawyer.com. Also, please take a sec to like, share, and subscribe by clicking on the button below. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm Rob Rosenthal with AskTheLawyers.com.